Land, Earth, and the Moon rotate around the Sun. Specifically, rotating the Sun. This is rotating around 0, axis where the Sun's supposed to be, or happens to be. So the Sun is like a static thing, and then they have the orbit group, which is the things that go around the Sun, I guess. Usually do that nesting 3 object 3D into one, so 3 dot object 3D inside one another, shifting them by rotation radiuses and rotating it around the center. So solar system is a JSON array. So rotate Y. So it is using rotate Y on those. So translate X, what if we do rotate? Holy God, okay. So, okay, it's rotating around zone 0, 0. How can we set a point that would rotate around? Does it literally have to be added as a child of this for it to do that? Oh no, but it is added as a child of that. Okay, 10x. So we said instead of rotate, we'll not translate all of them. What would happen? Absolutely nothing would happen. Okay. So because this is doing nothing itself. There we go. Okay, now we got something going on. More though, it's moving because this is moving. Like for example, if I turn this off, it was the code view that was causing that lag. And suspicion. Yeah, see, it's just moving because the parent's moving, so it's trying to keep it in line with where it was where it started at. So let me turn this back on. Let's not make this part of this. Let's make it part of the scene again instead of a child. And see what that does. Okay, so now it's not doing anything. I mean, it probably is doing something, but we can't see it because the operations are so slow. Okay, it's moving on its own now. So I think it's the Z rotation we don't need. We want to always be facing the screen, the camera. Maybe it's the Y rotation. I want to be the translate though. Whoops. It's the Y rotation. Okay, let's put the Z back on. Okay, so I want this to come towards and away from. Which axis is that? Is it the y-axis or the x-axis? So y is up and down, x is across, and z is to and from. So it's not so much going to be, it's going to be a translate, it's not going to be a rotate. So translate y. I say minus 0.5. I'm gonna make these easier to notice. So it's gonna go down. Translate z plus 0.5 or just 0.5. So it's gonna come forward a little bit. Then x-axis, we're gonna have it go minus 1. So to go this way. So it should come down and towards the camera. It should come down, forward, and down this way. Down to the bottom left. I should just keep doing that because we're not having to do anything different. We need to set certain bounds where we would change where it is going to. Yeah, see, look, the translate is not working. It's not actually doing anything. Let's see. Need to add the camera as a child of the cube. Nothing is happening. Something's supposed to happen. All that's doing is moving the grid, though. Right. So scene.add group, group.add mesh, group.add offset, offset.add camera. Okay, interesting. So he's trying to do something similar to this. Where's the run button at on this thing? Oh, there we go. Okay, so we got some planes, which are what these are. Double-sided. Interesting. Okay, so adding that to the scene, position, -100, translate 5000 used to work. Function render, rotation.y, 0.03. So this is using rotate again. But if I don't, I just want to move it. I want to rotate it. I don't want to have it do anything like that. Well, let's see. Change the pivot point. What is this exactly? This is circle geometry. Geometry. Translate 3D objects. 3D. If I get to rotate around an object, well, the problem is it's going to rotate and still spin around. I want it to stay like facing in one direction. So that'd be the z-axis. So if we don't rotate around the z-axis, rotate around x and y. Its own center instead of the world center. If I mention not rotating around the center, it's because the geometry of vertices are offset from the origin. You can automate repositioning by using a bounding box to define a reasonable center, then offset the mesh's position like so. I've replaced scalar -1. Box center. So var box new 3.box3 set from object mesh. Box center mesh position. Then add a mesh. Then add the mesh to a pivot object. Doesn't just need to be a pivot, it has to be like a... has to be able to rotate around like an orbit. Well, this thing doesn't even work anymore because there's been a change to the code. Oops, I just killed that. Bookmarks, not bookmarks, history. There we go. Let's see. I'll return its origin. Local coordinate system. If you want to shift the origin, you have to translate the geometry itself. So if you want to shift the origin... Oh, interesting. You can now create a mesh from the geometry and set the mesh's position. If you rotate the mesh, rotate around the new origin, the mesh must be located at the point. Okay, so object controls does let you just do a object, not the scene. I mean, it's based on the mouse, so yeah, we're going to use object controls eventually. So we'll need to have the mouse interaction. Should change the light color. It's a little bit excessive. Forked me on GitHub. I want to keep that for later. On a planet, Three.JS. Here's what's happening. Here's what I want to happen. So parent 3D object. So pivot rotation, pivot, parent add, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you add the mesh to the pivot object, and the pivot's what will do it for you. In this case, they're just pivoting on the z-axis. You could probably pivot on any axis if you wanted to. Okay, so the parent 3D object. Let's go ahead and put that in. Let's say test object equals new 3.object 3D. Then let's add some pivots. There, piv1 equals new 3 dots object 3D. No clue why you did that for Dreamweaver, but fine. Can deal with it. Okay. Get rid of this one for now. Actually, we can get rid of this one too. We only have one object we want to pivot around the center. So, scene.add parent. In other words, test object. Okay. So the Z will be, I guess, set up as a 0. So but if you look at this though, this is interesting. So this is rotating around Z, right? Oh, here we go. The camera actually has the camera thing in there. So rotating around the Z-axis. And this is the Y, so they're spaced apart. So we have to have a Z rotation and a Z translation, because Z is what is doing the depth. So if we want to come forward, that is Z. Got a typo there. Okay. Oh, interesting. So, actually, we can just do it with one geometry. Since all the geometry is going to be the same basic shape, we can have just one geometry and then change the material and then have just the material and the mesh be different for each one. We don't have to recreate the geometry. So it's like an instance of the geometry being used. Anyway, so back over here, we have this. I have our pivots, or pivot. We're going to leave that as that, because that's going to be where it's at. So I'm going to add the pivot to the parent, so test object dot add. Okay. Then we want to add the mesh